Today, I am going to explain a crime, drama, thriller movie called The Part You Lose. Please be aware, the video contains spoilers. Wesley is waiting for the school bus to arrive in the middle of nowhere, aka North Dakota. He gets on the bus and sits in the back. The bus passes by some children who throw snowballs at it and call it the retard rocket. In the school, they are learning how to sign the Pledge of Allegiance in sign language. Wesley gets bullied in the school. One of the other students spreads his snot in his hair, but seemingly he doesn't care. The bus drops him off once school is over and he walks home. They live in a small commune. They're having dinner and his mother, Gail, asks whether they are hungry with their little sister, Amber. She also asks what they want for dessert and Amber answers that she would like to have some crocodiles. They all share a little laugh and they seem to have a great time. After dinner, he plays checkers with his mom and beats her. The next day, while on the way to school, Wesley notices a huge roadblock. There are police vehicles and ambulance cars all around the place. When he gets home from school, her mother tells him that his father, Ronnie, finally came home. Ronnie looks like the stereotypical trucker, he just misses the beer belly. He's a bit reluctant when his father asks him to hug him. They are preparing for lunch, while Ronnie is trying to complete the trucker drip. He asks Wesley to sit elsewhere as he's sitting on his chair. Ronnie tells about the shooting that had happened down at Garson. It claimed 4 lives and had caused a giant mess. Gail then quickly changes the subject. She tells them about Wesley's history test. He got a 95 on it and the only thing he has got wrong was the Battle of Saratoga. His father isn't really moved by his performance. She asks Wesley whether he wants any more food, and also sings to him in sign language. Ronnie tells her that she doesn't need to do the signing as the boy is not deaf and they should treat him as a normal person. He seems especially annoyed by this. Gail says that it just makes it a lot easier for Wesley to understand the things she wants to say to him. Ronnie tells her that in a couple of years it's not going to be easy anyway once he's out of the house. She then asks Wesley without signing and he nods. Ronnie contentedly says that the boy can hear just fine. The following day Ronnie tells Wesley that her mother's spending the night at his grandmother's in Bismarck. He gives his son a bag of lunch. At school, he unpacks the bag, and the bully strikes with the snot maneuver again. He still doesn't stand up for himself and lets it slide. On the way home, he finds a man lying in the snow with a duffel bag. The homeless-looking guy shushes him. His hand is covered in blood and he looks like he's been lying there for a while. Wesley gets startled by him and runs away. He asks his father for help who is too busy repairing a tractor. He doesn't even understand the signs of Wesley and asks him to write it down. Wesley decides to run down where the man was laying and his father follows him. Once they get there, they only find the marks in the snow as the man is gone. Ronnie scolds his son and tells him to come back. At dinner, he asks for the salt, but Wesley can't hear it. He flips on his son and slams the table after he couldn't hear him for the second time. Wesley comes down in the middle of the night and decides to go outside when he notices that his father is sleeping in front of the TV. He goes outside with a flashlight to investigate the scene where he met the man before. He finds him just a couple of feet away from his original resting place. He makes a homemade sled and puts the full-grown man on it. Wesley must be the most buff 10-year-old you have ever seen. He then pulls the sled to an abandoned barn. He lays the man on the hay bales, and even gives him a little blanket. When the guy opens his eyes, Wesley shushes him, so he goes back to sleep. He wakes up the next morning and finds the boy still there. He remarks that Wesley isn't the talkative type. He asks about his hearing aid and tells him that he isn't missing much if he can't hear. When the guy pulls up his sweater, he revels that he has been wounded. Wesley goes back home to take some medical supplies. In the workshop, a customer is asking his son about the types of wrenches, and he knows every one of them. This makes Ronnie extremely jealous. He notices Wesley coming out of the house and shouts at him. He still isn't willing to accept the fact that his son can't hear properly. Wesley gives the supplies to the man and he stitches the wound. The man is fed up with fruit snacks and asks Wesley if they have some normal food around here. The TV broadcast tells about the shooting that happened earlier. While his parents are watching the broadcast, Wesley manages to sneak some leftovers into his bag. Ronnie leaves with a somewhat fishy reason. He says that they need to get the tractor up and running right now in the evening. Wesley gives the man the food and he devours it. He praises his mom saying that she's a good cook. He explains to him that he can't stay any more time here as he needs to meet a friend. He tries standing up but still, he's too weak to walk. They also can hear the search helicopter flying past. The man gives instructions to him on what to do. He goes to a gas station and leaves the man's ring on the given truck. The trucker comes out of the gas station with a prostitute, and they pick Wesley up as well. He passes the trucker an envelope and refuses to tell him the whereabouts of the man. A cop car drives past them. The trucker tells him that he's going to figure this out, but it will take a couple of weeks at minimum. He passes a paper bag to Wesley. When Wesley gets back, he passes the bag to the man. He pulls out a phone from it and tells Wesley that he's going to stick around for a little bit more than he has thought before. The boy takes some of his father's warm clothes for the man. He asks him about school. He says that it's Washington's birthday, so they have a day off. Wesley then watches the man working out and decides to join. Back home, he watches TV with his sister when his mother gets home. She asks him about school and also about the bully. His father steps in with firewood in his hands. Somehow he manages to drop it all and Wesley goes to give him a hand, but instead of carrying it he just stacks it on top of his father's, which angers Ronnie. After this, Wesley brings down the checkers table to the barn to challenge the man. They play a couple of games but Wesley loses all of them. He loses his temper and flips the board over. The man tells him that he's not going to let him win because he's deaf. He orders him to pick the board up. Wesley wants to quit but the man tells him to come back. He teaches him some moves and tells him to take his time to think before every move. He asks Wesley about his age. He tells him that he has a daughter about his age. He also asks about the boogers in his hair. Wesley tells him about the school bully. The man tells him to bring a thermos and his piggy bank down to the barn. He brutally smashes the piggy bank and fills the thermos with the coins. He puts it in his bag and demonstrates on the metal tank the damage this bad boy is capable of. Wesley's incapable of putting any strength into his swings. The man tells him to man up finally and stand up for himself. Filled with anger, he could finally deliver a decent swing with the bag. Wesley nervously anticipates the lunch break. Once the time comes for the snot maneuver, he stands up to face the bully. He can hear the man's voice in his head telling him what to do. He looks him straight in the eye but the bully backs off before it comes down to anything more serious. After he gets home, he is greeted by his mother and Mr. Chambers. He sits down and Mr. Chambers explains to them about the robbery 3 weeks ago. He says that out of 5 robbers 4 have been apprehended. He shows a picture of the missing 5th robber, the man in the barn. They believe that he is wounded and possibly incapacitated. Wesley looks out the window and notices 2 agents are investigating the barn. Mr. Chambers asks Wesley whether he's seen the man or not. He's avoiding the answer and the agent asks his mother to speak to his son alone. He tells him a story about his old neighbor Mrs. Stratton. She always fed stray animals and one day she started feeding a baby mountain lion. But a few weeks later that same mountain lion killed her and her family. Another agent knocks on the window and Mr. Chambers leaves. While playing checkers with the man, he notices that he is missing a finger. He tells him a tiger bit it off. He learned how to track and hunt after it happened, and when he found that mean old tiger, he ripped his heart out and turned it into a little ruby which he put in his ring. Ever since no tiger has taken a bite out of him, Wesley falls asleep in the barn but the man wakes him and tells him to go home. Days pass as usual and we can see that Wesley has colored his pinky black, just like the man's missing one. He also teaches the guy the Pledge of Allegiance in sign language. They have developed a strange father-son-like bond. They mess around and play some games. When Wesley goes to fetch the ball, he doesn't notice the flashlight that's shining in from the outside. The man grabs him from behind and covers his mouth. He looks outside the window and the sheriff leaves. At night, when he's sneaking off, his father catches him. He tells him don't bother to watch TV with him as it's broken and cracks open a cold one. He tells him about an old furnace which was always acting up, but only Wesley's grandfather could fix it. One day Ronnie decided that he's going to check it out. It didn't require any magic, just a good old hard beating. He starts kicking the TV and questions his son about where he's going at this time of the night. The next day, he brings toilet paper to the barn and tries to leave immediately, but the man catches him. He notices a black eye on him and asks who did this to him. He suspects the bully first, but then figures it was the father. Ronnie lies about it. He tells Gail that the boy sneaked upon him while he was fixing the TV, and he hit him accidentally. Ronnie tells his son that he wants to take him fishing but Wesley can't understand it without the signing, so his mother helps him out. He agrees to go down to the lake in the spring with his father. Later that night, Ronnie's down at the bar having a drink. While he's taking a piss outside, a man appears behind him. The next day, they get a call from the sheriff that Ronnie's in the hospital. He was beaten badly. At the dinner table, Wesley can finally take his favorite spot to sit. After dinner, he goes down to the barn. They are talking about horses. The man tells him that when he was roughly the same age as Wesley, his father bought horses. He had to take care of them, but he wouldn't allow him to name them. One day, the barn burned down, and insurance paid for all of it. His daddy figured it would be easier to let go of them if they hadn't known their names. He says once everything's settled down he's going to have a horse farm. He even asks Wesley to come with him. In school, they learn the phrase about going on a trip. Wesley is daydreaming about living on a horse farm with the man and his daughter. When he visits his father in the hospital, he finds out that the attacker was the very same man he takes care of in the barn. Later that day, the man tells him about a strange patrol vehicle. It comes around very frequently. Wesley wakes up at night and notices sirens in the distance, and a search helicopter as well. The next day, the man tells him that the plow didn't come at all that day. He accuses Wesley of telling on him to his parents. At night, Wesley packs his bag and grabs the car keys. When the man asks for his usual dinner, Wesley's being hesitant. He then grabs the bag and they both start pulling on it. The bag rips open and the thermos filled with the coins falls out of it. He's relieved and says that there is hope for the boy. They agree on leaving tomorrow night. Wesley packs his bag with toys. His mother walks in on him, and asks him about playing a game of checkers. Gail tells him about going down to a pizza place next week together. She also tells him about her daily horoscope. It told her that better days are coming. Once he's ready to leave, he says goodbye to his sister and walks down the stairs. They play a game of checkers and Wesley finally beats the man. He gets a call from the getaway driver. He's just parked outside on the road. He says goodbye to the boy, but Wesley's shocked. He thought he's going with him as well. Wesley could even say the word no. He begs the man to take him as well. They hug, but Wesley refuses to let him go. He pushes him back and tells him to piss off. When he runs outside, a police officer catches him from behind and drags him away. They put him in the car. Mr. Chambers is giving out orders on the radio. Wesley notices the getaway driver in another car. Mr. Chambers orders a whole SWAT team to get inside the barn. They fire some shots as well. Wesley starts to scream on top of his lungs. The next day, he goes back to the scene. He finds the checkers box filled with money. When he gets home, his father asks him to hug him. Wesley hugs his father, then runs up to his room.